Thank you, Representative Brown. Appreciate your understanding in that. So, all right. Well, members, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to call our roll. Welcome to the 14th day of session, 2025, January 31st of the 68th Wyoming Legislature. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Alamand. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Brady. Bratton. Brown Gary. Brown Landon. Byron. Campbell Elisa. Campbell Kevin. Chestick. Clouston. Connolly. Davis. Eklund. Erickson. Filer. Geringer. Guggenmoss. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Heft. Jarvis. Johnson. Kelly. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Lean. Locke. Lucas. McCann. Nicholas. Ottman. Ottman. Pendergraft. Posey. Provenza. Riggins. Rodriguez Williams. Schmid. Sherwood. Singh. Smith. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Thayer. Washut. Wasserberger. Webb. Weber. Wharf. Williams. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Mr. Speaker.
Here. Members, will we wait a little bit here while we've got some members? We do have several of those members that are not going to be attending, but we do have some that we know are here that we'll leave this open until we can get them up into the chamber and finish roll call. Next, our prayer will be led today by Nathan Johnson from Christ Reformed Presbyterian Church in Torrington, Wyoming. So if you would please rise, he will open us in prayer.
Heavenly Father, I am honored to be asked to open up these chambers in prayer, to sit with and among those representatives who represent we the people. I'm also humbled. Those are the biggest front doors I've ever opened in my life, and they are heavy. And it's humbling, as it should be. I'm just a common person whose roots date back to 1903 to Sunrise, Wyoming, whose family worked the mines. So I'm honored, I'm humbled, but I also tremble. No words capture this feeling more than Thomas Jefferson's when he said, "Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, that his justice cannot sleep forever." I'm also tremble at the words of Job, who said, referring to the Lord, that he makes nations great. and he destroys them. He enlarges nations, and he leads them away. I think of our great country in which Jefferson and Adams corresponded, and they said that they have created a new man who found a new way of governing in and through the people. That's humbling. I think of the incorrectly ascribed unluckiness to 13. Our flag has 13 stripes. 13 colonies were the original. And we have on our seal 13 letters. E pluribus unum. Out of many, one. And so, Lord, some said when we began this project that it would end sooner than it could take root. And yet, here we are. Constitution signed in 1787, ratified in 1788, and operational in 1789. The longest running written charter in the entire world. It has pleased you to keep this nation. And so I pray for this body, Lord. I pray that they would keep their inalienable rights that were not given to the people, but recognized. I pray that with this great country that celebrates liberty, that we would not fall off into libertinism, where everyone does that which is right in their own eyes, but rather let us keep the concept of liberty of our founders, which is an ordered liberty. I also pray, Lord, that we would, in this body, find that the pursuit of happiness would be honored, not hedonism, not untethered pleasure, but rather the pursuit of the good, the true, and the beautiful. The work is not done. Though we have achieved greatness where everybody now is equal under the law, we are not measured or judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. And I rejoice in that. But more work needs to be done. So I pray for this chamber, Lord, that their justice would be tempered by mercy, that self-reliance would be tempered by kindness as we seek to help those who need a helping hand up. Thank you for this body and for this honor. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Johnson. Fellow members and guests, please join me in the salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, born and unborn. Stay where you're at. Don't do anything. Touch elbows if necessary. No. Yep. No. Yeah. Air 5, everybody. Let everybody know you love and appreciate them. Wave at each other cordially. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Appreciate your willingness to not spread the wealth. Okay. So, Representative Singh, do you have something you'd like to share with the body?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
Please proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a beautiful day. The sun is shining. The birds are singing. We're going through this fun budget that we have here today, and I couldn't imagine a better day to have a birthday than today. And lo and behold, we do have a birthday in our chamber. Chairman Byron, it is his birthday today. So, folks, if we can go ahead and get the pipes rolling for him. I believe, is Representative Larson around here?
You never cease to amaze me, Chairman Byron. Okay, Representative Washington,
Privilege of the floor.
please.
On a happier note, I received a text message that Representative Riggins is home from the hospital, recovering well, and keep the prayers up.
Okay, Chief Clerk, if you would please finish calling the roll.
Bear? Bear?
Excused.
Clauston? Filer? Heiner? Ottman? Rodriguez Williams? Schmid? Tarver? Wasserberger? Weber? Mr. Speaker, 55 present, 7 excused. Oh, Bear? Mr. Speaker, 56 present, 6 excused.
Thank you, Chief Clerk. Our Journal Committee report.
Your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of January 30th, 2025 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Jarvis and Posey.
Thank you, Reading Clerk. Our doctor of the day is Dean Bartholomew. Sounds like he may have plenty of work to do. MD, family medicine out of Powell, Wyoming, came all the way down to be with us today. So I would tell you to make his trip worthwhile, but anyway, thank you for coming down and being with us. Okay, messages from the Senate we do not have. Introduction and reading and reference of bills is the next place.
We will read them, but they're not, that's next.
What's that?
You're fine.
We're good? Okay. We are at that order of business of introduction, reading, and reference of bills. The first bill for our consideration is House Bill 102.
House Bill 102, sponsored by Representative Heiner.
First reading of the bill.
Attorney General elected.
House Bill 102 will be assigned to our committee number 1, Judiciary. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 101.
House Bill 101, sponsored by Water.
First reading of the bill.
Forest Health Grant Program 3.
House Bill 101 will be assigned to our committee number 2, Judiciary. House Bill number 140, next bill for our consideration.
House Bill 140, sponsored by Representative Filer.
First reading of the bill.
Continuing of Permitting Act.
House Bill number 140 will also be assigned to committee number 2, Appropriations. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 120.
House Bill 120, sponsored by Representative Strzok.
First reading of the bill.
Administrative Procedure, Jury Trial for Penalties.
House Bill 120 will be assigned to our committee number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 134.
House Bill 134, sponsored by Representative Guggenmas.
First reading of the bill.
Taxpayer Funds, Sexually Explicit Events Prohibited 2.
House Bill 134 will be assigned to our committee number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 171.
House Bill 171, sponsored by Representative Strzok.
First reading of the bill.
Sexual Exploitation of Children, amendments.
House Bill 171 will also be assigned to committee number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 180.
House Bill 180, sponsored by Representative Larson Lloyd.
First reading of the bill.
K-12, Mental Health Program 3.
House Bill 180 will be also assigned to committee number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 255.
House Bill 255, sponsored by Representative Singh.
First reading of the bill.
Mobile Home Certificate, Information Disclosure Requirement.
House Bill 255 will also be assigned to committee number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 257.
House Bill 257, sponsored by Representative Singh.
First reading of the bill.
Barber Apprenticeships.
House Bill 257 will be assigned to committee number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 243.
House Bill 243, sponsored by Representative Winter.
First reading of the bill.
Denturist Practice Act.
House Bill 243 will be assigned to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. Next bill for consideration, House Bill 151.
House Bill 151, sponsored by Representative Lean.
First reading of the bill.
Predator Management District appointments and terms.
House Bill 151 will be assigned to Committee Number 6, TRW. Next bill for consideration, House Bill 341.
House Bill 341, sponsored by Representative Larson Lloyd.
First reading of the bill.
Summer Nutrition Assistance for Children.
House Bill 341 will be assigned to Committee Number 8, Transportation. That concludes introductions. Reports from standing committees.
House Bill 166, sponsored by Representative Bratton. State Auditor Payment Transparency. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred House Bill 166, State Auditor Payment Transparency, respect the report, send back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Chestick, Kelly, Lean, Singh, Washit, Webb. Excused, Representative Filer. Representative Washit, Chairman. House Bill 234, sponsored by Representative Allemand. Second Amendment, Financial Privacy Act Amendments. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred House Bill 234, Second Amendment, Financial Privacy Act Amendments, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Kelly, Lean, Singh, Washit, Webb. Noes, Representative Chestick. Excused, Representative Filer. Representative Washit, Chairman.
Thank you, Reading Clerk. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess, Mr. Majority Floor Leader, if we got a script on the, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, just give you a heads up what we're doing. In an effort to try to move this ahead, we're going to be laying some bills back on second reading. We'll take them up later, which will expedite us to Committee of the Whole so we can start immediately going on to the budget. So, Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to House Rule 7-3, I move that the House lay back House Bill 54, 168, 270, and 271 for one additional day.
Absent objection pursuant to House 7-3, House Bill 168, House Bill 270, and House Bill 271 are laid back one additional day to Monday, February the 3rd. Oh, and House Bill 54. We are at that order of business of bills on second reading. The first bill for our consideration is House Bill 5.
House Bill 5, sponsored by Travel, Fishing Outfitters and Guides, Registration of Fishing Boats.
Having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 31.
House Bill 31, sponsored by Representative Pendergraft, School Safety and Security.
House Bill 31, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 60.
House Bill 60, sponsored by Representative Lawley, Student Eligibility and Sports Amendments.
House Bill 60, after having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 86.
House Bill 86, sponsored by Appropriations, Public Property and Buildings Amendments.
House Bill 86, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 133.
House Bill 133, sponsored by Representative Guggenhaus, Sanctuary Cities, Counties, and State Prohibition.
House Bill 133, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 137.
House Bill 137, sponsored by Management Council, a reviser's bill.
House Bill 137, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 164.
House Bill 164, sponsored by Representative Brown, Gary.
House Bill 164, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 177.
House Bill 177, sponsored by Representative Worf, Statutory Standing Committee, Federal Review.
House Bill 177, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 206, next bill for our consideration.
House Bill 206, sponsored by Representative Weber.
House Bill 206, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 221.
House Bill 221, sponsored by Representative Ottman, Bighorn and domestic sheep relocation, effective date repeal.
House Bill 221, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for that's it. We got through them all. Got jumped onto an amendment bill. Okay. Representative Brown,
Privilege of the floor, Mr. Speaker.
please.
Oh, we're getting early in the day, or we're already early in the day, but we're going to have a long day here, ladies and gentlemen. And so I want to get us to stretch our feet right now. And if we can, Mr. Speaker, it is my great honor to introduce members of the Tunisian military delegation who are here as part of the state partnership program between the Republic of Tunisia and the state of Wyoming. This delegation represents the enduring and fruitful relationship between Tunisia and the Wyoming National Guard, a partnership that has grown and thrived since its inception in 2004. Our collaboration spans critical areas such as military readiness, disaster response, and civil protection. It has included joint training exercises, exchanges focused on emergency management, and even initiatives that promote greater understanding between the cultures. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a warm welcome to our honored guests, Senior Bashir Zawi and Deputy Chief of Staff of the Tunisian Army, Senior Colonel Mahir Zuhir, Deputy Chief of Staff for the Tunisian Air Force.
Thank you,
Mr.
gentlemen,
Speaker.
and welcome to the House. Go ahead, Representative Brown. Is it? All right. Thank you, folks. Appreciate you being here. And now, we do have the doctor of the day physically in the chamber, so for those of you that have been waiting to get in line, he's back there. We'll repeat his name here. Dr. Dean Bartholomew, MD. He is out of family medicine out of Powell, Wyoming. So step into the, there you go. Doctor, I hope you brought some fun things for us today because I think you may be called on. I don't know what you got with you, but okay, you've been apprised of the situation. All right, very good. We're glad you're here. Thank you for being here. Okay. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I move that the House resolve itself into a committee of the whole and to consider only the budget bill,
HB 1.
House Bill 001. There's some zeros in front of that one, I know, but I just don't know how many of them.
You have heard the motion from the Majority Floor Leader. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is adopted. Representative Rodriguez Williams, please come and chair our Committee of the Whole for the budget.
Very good. The Committee of the Whole will please come to order. The first bill for our consideration is House Bill 1. The reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1, sponsored by Appropriations, General Government Appropriations 2, an act relating to supplemental appropriations for the operation of state government for the fiscal biennium commencing July 1st, 2024, and ending June 30th, 2026.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Bear?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 1 do pass, and I ask for your favorable consideration on this bill. I would like to take a moment now just to give you all an introduction, and my great appropriations team will just spend a few moments helping you get prepared for what we're going to do today and on Monday. Just a quick overview of the 2025 supplemental budget topics. First of all, process. The budget recommendations were submitted on November 18th of 2024 from the governor. Joint Appropriations Committee of both the 67th and the 68th Legislature met in December for a full week of hearings to discuss agency requests. Agency callbacks and markups of the budget bill before you occurred through the first 2 weeks of the 2025 general session, and that was the Joint Appropriations Committee that was meeting up there on the third floor doing that. Amounts. The Chief Executive recommended a supplemental budget of $692.4 million across all funds. Of this, $224.6 million was from the general fund. However, these amounts do not include letters from elected officials. The superintendent added $121.5 million from the school foundation program, and the state treasurer $40 million from the general fund. The judicial branch added $180,708. Also, both K-12 school capital construction and state capital construction were removed by the JAC from the supplemental budget, and we've had quite a bit of discussion on that, so I won't go into detail. If you want to know more about why we did that, please ask one of the appropriators. A walkthrough of the high-level comparison of that $264.8 million general fund request of the chief executive. The Joint Appropriations Committee recommends $29.6 million in new general fund appropriations, after deducting some identified reversions from the previous budget and $100 million in loans from the Legislative Stabilization Reserve account, the state's rainy day fund. The chief executive recommended the addition of 33 full-time employees and a reduction of 12 part-time employees. The judicial branch recommended making 2 time-limited full-time employees permanent, for a total increase of 35 full-time employees requested. House Bill 1 before you includes a net increase of 9 full-time employees and a net reduction of 8 part-time employees. So again, the recommendation was 35 increase, and the bill before you has 9. Walk through the long-term, I just want to take a moment. I did pass out a 30,000-foot level, and that's what covers the numbers that I just gave you. It's a one-pager down at the bottom. It's got a lot of red description of the reductions that the JAC made. Has green, it shows $100 million in green. That is where we converted the governor's request for grant funds to a loan. If you can find that sheet of paper, that's what I just discussed about our general reductions. That's very helpful. We're going to describe a few other sheets, but that one you should be able to grasp just by looking at it. A walk through of the long-term profile. This is another sheet that I had provided to you, and it's got one yellow band on it along the bottom. And I'm not going to even get into the numbers. We're going to be talking a lot of numbers today, but I just want you to see that there is a long-term profile. And as I get into, kind of my esoteric narrative about this and what the vision is of your House Appropriations Committee in this budget, we're going to discuss that briefly. So that is the long-term profile that our staff put together. And it's based on the CRAIG, our profile of income, and our profiles of expenditures. One thing to be aware of about this sheet of paper with the yellow band on it is you can see that on the school foundation side, we are negative within a 4-year period. It has become the focus of your House Appropriations Committee to work diligently to change that. We are on a trajectory that will continue to grow that deficit, which is, we discussed yesterday, backfilled from the rainy day fund. So we're taking from savings and making up the deficit spending that we have in education. Just briefly, we're on a trajectory of 4.5% increases year over year in education spending. There are 2 areas in education spending. That is transportation and special ed, thank you, are both on a trajectory of a 6% increase year over year. Folks, inflation usually averages out between 2.5 and 2.7% increase each year. So you can see that we're struggling as a state financially to keep up with that. So it's going to be our goal as a House Appropriations Committee to be very diligent and focused on that long-term profile. And we'll discuss that as we go through the budget as well, each of the things that affect that. Your actions yesterday in Committee of the Whole will have a positive effect on those negative numbers. I want to take a moment and discuss the governor's request or recommendation and where his focus was. He stated in the State of the State address, as well as in the newspapers, that he had 3 main goals to come out of this budget. He had others that dealt with the CAPCON, and we've dealt with that by working to get the Veterans Hospital into the CAPCON bill. But specifically on this budget, now that we've separated CAPCON out of it, 3 things that the governor asked for: fire mitigation, tax relief, and federal litigation for our natural resources, funding so that we can take the federal government to court and protect our resources. We have worked diligently to achieve those 3 things. We did not agree with the governor on the tactics or the process that we're going to use to do that, and it'll be up to you to choose. How will we accomplish these things? And or are they your priorities? But they are the governor's, and we have given him a lot of deference as we produce this product for you. I also emailed you this morning another product, another thing, and that is, it's a story about Davy Crockett. And the story is titled, Not Yours to Give. And when you have time, I really encourage you to read that document. But I'm going to read just the very end of that document. Every American citizen has a moral and spiritual obligation to see that no neighbor, no person, child, or adult suffers for the lack of necessities, while he has the slightest surplus in his own name. But neither does man have the right to use government and the law in the name of charity to force the unwilling to do that which he would not do if the choice were his. Before any citizen concludes that the poor have a better life under state welfare than their counterparts had under true charity 100 years ago, he should examine the present and investigate the past. So with that, we're going to get into the budget. A few more details. As an indication of pacing, we intend to work through at least Agency 67 today. And when I say that, Representative, can I use names when I'm doing this, or do I need to? Okay. The good representative on appropriations from over the hill is going to go into detail of the 2 main documents we're going to use through the next 2 days. One is the status sheet, which is a 8.5 by 14 sheet. And you'll be able to see, we'll start with Agency 1, and our minimum goal is to get through Agency 67 today. It's almost the last couple of pages. If possible, we'll go through all of the agencies and leave the very last back page, which is the 300 section, to do on Monday. We leave some open for sure so that we don't close out this first reading. It'll give you the weekend to digest and prepare, because Monday, when we close out committee of the whole reading on this document, this bill, you will need to have your amendments ready for second reading, which we will do on Wednesday. So there's a timeline for you. Over the weekend, you can digest what we share with you today and prepare for those amendments to be drafted on Monday, and they have to be completed before we finish committee of the whole on this bill. That allows you and the public to review everyone else's amendments for second reading. You'll have all Tuesday to review those. And then Tuesday, we will address second reading. That Agency 67 is the University of Wyoming. Finally, all second reading amendments, I have mentioned this already, must be filed by the conclusion of consideration of House Bill 1 during committee of the whole next Monday, February 3rd. And one last thing, you may have noticed that this has a -2 at the end of this House Bill 1. And this is something that confused me, so I'm going to try to clue you all in on it. It alternates year after year, whether it's going to be a House Bill 1 or Senate File 1. This happens to be the year that it will be Senate File 1 that we present to the governor. So we will work House Bill 1. Our colleagues across the building will work Senate File 1. When you do those amendments that I just mentioned, I encourage you to try to find a colleague in the other chamber to do a mirror amendment. What that does is if both amendments pass, that will be set in the document that we all agree upon. If only one side passes, it will become a negotiating item in joint conference. So I encourage you to work with your colleagues in the other chamber when it comes to these amendments. And again, this year, the end product, when we come out of that joint conference committee, will be a Senate File 1. All right? And with that, I'll turn it over to not so healthy Speaker Pro Tem.
The chair recognizes Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So today we're going to look real quick before we dive in at a couple documents that we're going to spend quite a bit of time in. And before we get started, I want to tell you guys something that is vitally important. This is your budget. Let that sink in. This is your budget. It's the budget that you have been sent here to work on. This is a supplemental, obviously a one-year budget. And we're going to talk about a couple different documents. First of all, the bill status report. Does everyone have one of these? Got to find it. If you don't have this, you're going to be behind the 8 ball. So the bill status report, this is kind of a 30,000-foot view of House Bill number 1. So everything that you find in your status report, you'll find in House Bill number 1, but this lays out easier. This is easier to follow along. This is easier to kind of keep track of what we're talking about. And so as we look at these two different documents, these are predominantly where we're going to be. This right here is the supplemental. This is what agencies have actually brought forward and requested to the governor and of JAC. You may have one of these, you may not. This copy will be right up here if you need to get access to it to see about what was requested of JAC and the governor. But I want all of you guys to grab House Bill 1 real quick, the actual document. And I want you to flip over that first page and you're going to see something. You're going to see a list of different accounts, because this is the thing, and I'll be honest with you, there's still a learning curve to this. So if you look at the front page of your status report, and you look down in those lower items where you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the Section 1 Office of the Governor, and you'll see something like $1 million and then a GF. Well, what is that? Well, that's general funds. Government loves acronyms. It's how we keep the thing rolling, I swear. And so GF is real easy, right? We can get that one. In fact, if you go to page 1 of House Bill 1, you won't even find, actually it's page 2, you won't find GF. Because they're like, if you don't know general fund, you're already in trouble type of deal. But general fund. But you may sit there and see what else is there, and you go through and you got A4, EF, FF, IS, PF, PR, and these are not all encompassing. This isn't all of the funds, but these are some funds you're going to see over the course of the next two working days in that. If you spin it over and you look and all of a sudden we see like S7, S10, S13, S14, this is, again, more accounts that money will be pulled out of, placed into, and will work with. So it's important to remember when you're looking at this and making decisions on the fiscal side for the state, do you know where you're pulling the money from or what you're putting money into, and is that the right accounts? And I would challenge you, ask those questions. Is this the best place to bring it from? Is this the best place to go after? So you're going to see that there's going to be those terms there. Also, how many people have a budget and fiscal data book? You were given one. Yep, there you go. So I want you guys to real quick turn in that budget and fiscal data book. I want you guys to turn to page 83. More acronyms. Why is it important to know this stuff? If you have these little tabs, put the tabs in, fold a page over something, and figure out where we're at. And so you're looking at agencies, boards, and commissions, funds, and then on the backside, budget, bill, funds, and other. It's just a really good kind of appendix of the acronyms that we're going to be seeing as we talk. And you're going to find real fast that if you don't quite know these acronyms, you get lost in the weeds and you start getting confused on what's going on. Being 100% honest, this is what is going to happen today. You have all the best intentions right now of paying attention to everything that's going to take place today. And then in about 10 minutes, you're going to be like, yeah. So just, I would challenge you, keep up on the acronyms, keep up on where this money is coming from and going to. Realize we're opening agencies. These are requests from agencies, and this is how it works. So also I want you to turn to page 40 in that same book, and you're going to see no, maybe I'm off, guys, on that. Okay, page 115. That's where we need to be. That's my fault. Page 115 of the data book. McKay, help. Sorry, I can't say that. My bad. I can't say names. Okay, so here you're going to have a summary of state accounts. This is a great opportunity for you to see what account and how much money is in there as of November 22nd, 2024. And so this is just kind of give you a high level of these accounts and what's in them. The budget book, the data book, is just it's a really easy, clean way of getting kind of a high level understanding of what's going on in the different accounts. So as we go through this, I would just challenge you, if you hear someone say, now on your bill status report, again, we're talking about this. Or we could say House Bill 1, we're talking about this. Or if we say in the data book, we're talking about this. Or in the supplemental request, we're talking about this. Thank you, guys. Get all my stuff out of here.
The chair recognizes Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So assuming that that was clear as mud, I'm going to give you some more pointers here. And please, at any point in time, if you're lost, slow us down, ask questions. Again, this is your budget bill. I love that we can use props. Thank you guys for amending that rule. So again, and I should say, I did email out this morning to the members a link to the digital version of each agency's requests. So if you need to use that to do a quick keyword search, that may be a quicker way to get the information you're looking for than flipping through the book that Representative Baer has in his hand. So, and there's a copy here. Or grab one of us if you need help finding an agency or finding a section or a unit. Okay, so going back to your House Bill 1 budget bill. So you've got this on your desk. So this includes all the agencies with appropriations that, if adopted by you, the body, will be increased or decreased from the amounts appropriated last year. So think of this as last year's budget bill, but it's a really big amendment to it. So because this is a supplemental budget, not all agencies will be included in here. So this is a much thinner bill than what you will see next year. So the text in this budget bill is the base text. Anything that is underlined reflects language that has been recommended by your JAC. So again, any language that's underlined is new language from last year's budget bill. So that's a quick visual for you to say, this is old language, this is new language because it's underlined. If you see stricken language, so lines that are crossed out, that is text that has been recommended to be removed. So we're going back into last year's budget and we're saying, nope, we didn't really want to do that. We're taking it out. All right, so if you'll flip to page 5 in the budget bill, I'm going to give you an example of how to read through this table. So the first agency that we're considering is of our chief executive. This is agency number 1. So on the top of page 5, I don't know how many of you can see the pink arrows on here. So these are your columns. So these reflect general fund dollars, federal fund dollars, other funds, and then total appropriations. So that's on the top. Those are your columns. And then each row, which I've highlighted in blue, again, if you're like eagle eyes, you can see this. If not, I'll walk it around like Vanna White. The row in the table illustrates the different divisions within this agency. And then below the table is a narrative that we refer to as footnotes. So you'll see on page 5, line 26 is footnote number 1. And then when you flip it over, you'll see on page 6, line 4 is footnote number 2, and so on and so on. So the footnotes that are here are again from last year's budget bill. But if you look on page, it's my first change here, page 10, footnote number 13, you'll see it's underlined. So I want you guys to think, what does that mean if it's underlined? That's new language or a change. Everybody give yourself a pat on the back for that one. Good job. Good job, good job. Okay, so that is a quick primer on how to read the budget bill. Now I'm going to put this down. Again, I love that I can hold all this up. If you will look at your summary report, the legal sheet here, this is super helpful. And if you write neatly and smallly, if you have small handwriting, you can make your notes on this. So this is on the top. You'll see there are 3 boxes. The first box is the governor's recommendation or recommendations from our courts or our elected officials. In the middle, in brown, you'll see the changes that your joint appropriators made to the supplemental budget. On the far right, you'll see what says 2025 supplemental budget bill. Those are the things that made it into the budget bill. So again, the request or recommendation, JAC changes, and then what is in your bill. You will also see in this document notes. Do not confuse those with footnotes in your budget bill. These are notes that staff have provided to us to help us with this walkthrough and the explanation. The notes that are in brown reflect changes that were made. The notes that are in black reflect where we agreed with the recommendation. So you will also notice that there are 5 agencies that appear in the status report that don't appear in the budget bill. And I'm going to return that explanation over to my good colleague for explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sherwood. The chair recognizes Representative Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just so you know, there are agencies that had recommendations that were denied by the Joint Appropriations Committee. You will not find them in your budget bill, but you will see narratives in the summary sheet. So as we're going through it and you're wondering why, there's certain agencies not listed here. It's either because they did not request, the governor denied, and the JAC conferred with the governor's denial. There are requests of 5 agencies where the Appropriations Committee denied the request entirely. They are Agency 2, the Secretary of State, Agency 15, the Attorney General, Agency 37, the State Engineer, Agency 66, the Board of Tourism, Agency 70, the Enhanced Oil Recovery Commission. And although these agencies do not appear in the supplemental budget bill, any member of the legislature could sponsor an amendment to return these agencies or any other agency currently not appearing on House Bill 1. So get your amendments in. And the increases or decreases of the agency appropriation. So next is a short explanation of the different appropriations that the committee chose for these. So for instance, the Secretary of State, Agency 2, the committee denied the request of 3 full-time employees in the amount of $32,600 in general funds related to the business filing activities. Similarly, for the Attorney General, the committee denied the request for 2 full-time employees in the amount of $526,577 in the general fund for attorney positions. This relates in parts to another action wherein the committee approved $3.6 million for natural resource litigation, which will be further discussed and explained by my colleagues as we walk through the rest of the bill. And next, the committee denied $148,000 in general funds and $401,000 in funds from the Water Development Account 1. And there were also 3 full-time employees related to water modeling for a river in the southwest part of the United States and another for a river moving to the neighboring state in the southeast Wyoming. The committee also denied $488,127 from the tourism account for compensation increases in the Wyoming Board of Tourism. And finally, the Joint Appropriations Committee denied $279,401 in the general fund for the administrative office specialist and petroleum engineer or geologist within the Enhanced Oil Recovery Commission. One thing that you can look at that the JAC was a little proactive on is we were restoring language that was overridden by the executive. So the Joint Appropriations Committee also restored 8 different times some of the language that was vetoed in the 2024 budget bill. Specifically, the committee restored limits on transferring funds appropriated to the purpose of personnel. This action of the Joint Appropriations Committee is consistent with the action of the 67th legislature, and it restricts the transfers of funds within most agency budget. However, the committee also provided additional flexibility or so-called mini flex to those 8 agencies for appropriations. And those agencies are found in Agency 1, the governor, Agency 8, the Office of the Public Defender, Agency 24, the Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources, Agency 45, the Department of Transportation, Agency 96, the State Budget Department, Agency 38, the Wyoming Gaming Commission, Agency 303, which was the carryover of appropriations, and Agency 347, Personnel Services Transfer. Most of those actions can be found on your summary. So the long sheet in the very back in the 300 section, if you really want to look at those narratives, or in your budget bill around page 79. So, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Smith. The chair will recognize Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and now we're going to get started, folks. So make sure you've got those two documents in front of you. The status sheet, that's what I'm going to be working off of, and your budget if you'd like to refer to further information than what's on the status sheet. All right. Madam Chairman, for an explanation of Section 1, Department of the Governor, please refer to page 1 on the status report and page 5 on your bill. JAC added footnote number 16 to specify that no funds from public school foundation program account or any other source shall be expended for contract services or state personnel relating to the liaison with the Wyoming Charter School Authorization Board. JAC adopted the governor's recommendation of $1 million general fund one time for the Special Contingency Fund. Again, this is fire mitigation. JAC adopted the governor's recommendation for $1,263,966 of general fund, one time for the Disaster Contingency Fund. Again, fire mitigation, the governor's #1 priority. JAC decreased the governor's recommendation for $1 million general fund one time by $800,000 general fund to $200,000 general fund to the State Hazard Mitigation Plan and added a footnote number 13, budget request, page 27. And again, the budget request is this big thick book over here. I'm going to give you a brief explanation of that so that this is a time when I finish with this, folks, we're going to leave this section open and allow you to ask questions. When you're all done with questions, we'll close this section and go on. So prepare your questions now, but to mitigate some of those questions, I'm going to just explain that reduction of $800,000. The governor, in his request, gave us two options. We could do $200,000 and take federal funds for this emergency planning, or we could do $1 million where we funded it all ourselves. Your JAC chose to work with the federal government on this emergency management plan, and so we appropriated $200 million, and that footnote that I just mentioned allows the governor to access those federal funds. Moving on. JAC decreased the governor's rec of $5.2 million one time by $5 million to $200,000 general fund for an efficiency study of the Wyoming Innovation Partnership, WIP, and added footnote number 14. JAC amended footnote number 7 to exempt the appropriation for phase 3 of the WIP from section 347. Section 347 is a restoration of section 307 in the original budget. JAC decreased the governor's recommendation of $7.5 million general fund one time by $3.9 million general fund to $3.6 million general fund for natural resource litigation and moved this appropriation to section 345. And you can see that in section 345 when we get to the back of this bill. It's on the back of your status report, but we will be covering that on Monday, again, to keep this bill open. And lastly, in this section, JAC adopted the governor's rec of $2.5 million general fund one time for protection and adjudication of interstate water rights and added footnote number 15 specifying the funds shall only be used for legal counsel. Madam Chairman, JAC adopted and denied, we discussed that, and are there any questions at this time? I'll stand for those.
The chair recognizes Representative Larson.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman and Madam Chairman, just a question as we proceed forward. I'm assuming that you would like to kind of get a volley of questions and then be able to answer them rather than individually.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, that would be satisfactory. We'll try. We have a team up here, by the way. We're down one, just like the body's down a little bit. We're down one due to the illness traveling through this body. So bear with us, but we'll try to take all your questions. If it gets too overwhelming, we'll break into the middle of it and answer as many as we can to keep things moving.
Thank you. So, Madam Chairman, I've got a couple of questions in here that I'm just would like to note. So the first is on note number 4 on your, what do we call this thing? Cheat sheet, the summary sheet, status sheet. And it refers to the governor's budget on page 27, where in his recommendation, he requested the 200,000 that the JAC has adopted, but also had a note in there that if the legislature's intent was not to pursue federal funds for the purpose of helping get the state hazard mitigation plan into place, that he would recommend $1.2 million. So I just want to make sure on that, that it's your position then that we should pursue those federal funds and just appropriate 200,000 of general funds. That's my first question. And then the second question are similar on footnotes on note 7 and note 8 on the summary sheet. Both refer to funds that are set aside to help protect the state's interest. The first one on note 7 is that natural resource litigation fund, and then the second is for the interstate water rights. And it appears that in both of those, we restrict that solely for legal counsel. And in the governor's request, for example, on the litigation fund, it was to enable us to continue our legal initiatives, but to also hire outside counsel and experts to help us. And in the water rights one on page 39 of the governor's budget, it was to protecting and the adjudicating of interstate water rights through the acquisition of data, modeling, and other scientific means. But you create a new footnote 15, which really restricts that to just legal, and would just remind the good chairman of last year when we was trying to work through that litigation fund that we had in place, that we had a number of conversations with the executive branch on being able to use that to gather other resources, but because we had it so tightly crafted, that become difficult. And so I'm just wondering why, or what the conversation was on continuing with that restrictive language, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Bear. Sorry about that. Representative Strzok.
Thank you, Chairman. So my question was only in this one with the funds that goes for disaster. At one time there was talk, I know it was just fire, but if they added on the Laparelle Irrigation District, is that part of that for any of the flooding that may occur from them taking out the dam? Has that been added to that or any of the issues? Thank you.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll work backwards. So the answer to the last question is no, this is fire mitigation. And these two notes that you see here where we've met the governor's recommendation and filled those two funds, those were funds that were depleted during the last fire emergency this last summer. So the answer is sort of yes, in that because we've refilled these, if there was an emergency, these funds could be used for that if there were an emergency where the Laparelle Dam failed or we had a flood. So yes, those could be used for that. We just filled the two funds up that were depleted during the fire disaster. Okay, note 7 and 8 was asked about. These funds are restricted, and again, we moved them out of the governor's request. We denied his entire request, and then we did something different. Again, it's on the 300 section. So I think I'll ask my colleague, the Speaker Pro Tem, to address this. I'm just going to address it generally. There was an account set up for coal litigation back in 2021 by the Speaker Pro Tem, and that fund has been depleted down to $75,000. So we have hired outside counsel to defend our natural resources. We felt it was a proper use of funds to reload that up. The governor wanted 7 million. We've used that specific account. We have language in there now that you'll see in the 300 section that we've opened it up to all kinds of natural resources so we can defend, for instance, uranium if we had to, whatever our natural resources are. And since we've gone through 1.2 million since 2021, we feel like I think it's 3.6 million exactly, plus the 75,000 is going to get us through the next 12 months. Again, we will be doing a budget in 12 months where we'll be able to make adjustments. And along those lines, also this ties into the governor's request for 2 positions in the Attorney General's office. We denied those. So what we're saying by this is we want to hire outside counsel for these big cases where we're defending the state of Wyoming against the federal government, which will likely end up in that court that is over the entire nation. And we want to hire, the kind of counsel that's going to win it. And that's what we've been doing so far, and it's worked well for the state. So we're sending a really strong signal as to what we're going to do. As to the question about interstate water rights, I do agree with my good colleague from the center of the state. I think that it would have been wiser that we spent some of these monies on those research projects so that we have a good defense. And I argued that in JAC, but we don't always win our arguments in JAC. It's a large body of 12 members. So I think that maybe even that body with more time of deliberating over what we have to do to defend our water rights might come to a better conclusion, and we spend some of these dollars on getting the data so that our attorneys, because again, that footnote, as he mentioned, restricts it to just attorneys. And so there you go, folks. There's a first opportunity for a good amendment. Get a senator on board, and let's open that up and take care of our water rights. Again, these funds that we're putting into these accounts for litigation also send a signal to our neighboring states that, listen, if you want to take our water rights, we're preparing to fight for that. We're going to defend ourselves. We're going to protect our water rights. And lastly, it was a question about Note 4, and I want to go over that one more time. Hopefully this clears it up. We went with the governor's original recommendation of $200,000 and did not expend 1.2 million out of the general fund because we anticipate and we allow in our footnotes for the governor to use those federal funds to create that emergency plan. And with that, I'd like to turn it over just a moment. If there's any additional information about that action in 2021, the good bringer of the bill, Speaker Pro Tem, can share that.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So if you flip to the back part of your supplemental status report, you're going to see a section of 300s. And we're not going to go deep into them because we will do that later. But 345 is where that language that we just heard about is located. And so the governor's rec of 7.5 million of general funds was reduced to 3.9 million of general funds. And then it created a subsection 345 for natural resource litigation and carryover funds limited to coal-related litigation. So give you a little bit of the history of this. In 2021, I ran House Bill 207, which gave us the ability to push back on states that were breaching Commerce Clause. A state cannot tell us how we can operate or run the commerce of our state when it comes to coal. Some of the members of this body voted for that if they were here, and it was this great idea, but the problem was we found out real fast that that was too narrow of sideboards. And so the states themselves, even though we had a state south of us that were giving us some grief, they backed down on that pretty fast. And we could say it was because of 207, we don't know. But what we found over the next 2 years, the good representative with 10 on his license plate, he ran a bill in 2023, House Bill 69, that opened up that coal litigation fund to also include the federal government, and we could push back on the federal government. So we had the opportunity to see that money used this last year in the Buffalo RMP, and so it served its purpose, and it was very much a tool and an asset. We're wanting to further open this up, and if you actually look, there's House Bill 233 this year that will open it up to natural resource. And so it's basically anything that is our natural resources. We have taken in a 300 section, basically done what 233 would do just in the supplemental, to give the opportunity for our chief executive and the attorney that is represented out of his office the ability to use $3.6 million to fight for our natural resources here in the state of Wyoming. And with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Seeing none, Speaker, or Chairman Bear.
Madam Chairman, unless there are further questions, that concludes the explanation of Section 1, Department of the Governor's Office.
Absent any objection, Section 1 is closed. Chairman Bear.
Madam Chairman, for an explanation of Section Section 4, also the number of this executive. And this is the Department of the State Treasurer. Please refer to page 2 on your status report and page 12 on your bill.
Madam Chairman. Mr. Chairman, are we going to skip over Section 2?
Representative Larson,
Thank you. I apologize, Madam Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
do you have a point of order? Or?
A point of order, thank you.
Representative Larson.
I'm just
What's your
wondering, are we
point?
skipping over Section 2?
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for the question. We did go over Section 2, the Secretary of State's office earlier on. It was a part that's been completely removed because there is no dollars. That was denied by JAC. Now, what I would ask, if we have questions on those sections, that we save those till the end. And if that's not today, that would be on Monday when we go over the 300 section. So if you see a section that is completely removed and you want a description of the discussions that happened in JAC, be happy to go over those with you. But I would recommend that we move as briskly as possible through the sections that are in the bill. Again, that section is on your status report, but not in the bill, so that we can get you guys out of here to get a couple of days to recover from all the illness that's passing around. And then on Monday, we can go over those agencies. Once again, it was done at the beginning by the good rep from the border, the eastern border, just north of this county. Without objection, we'll continue. Okay. So again, we're on Section 4, State Treasurer, page 2 of your status report, and page 12 of the bill. JAC adopted the State Treasurer's request for $26,950 from other funds, to which $5,896 of other funds is one time, to reclassify a senior accounting analyst to a principal accountant. JAC adopted the State Treasurer's request, including a technical correction, to reduce one-time benefits by $8,396 of other funds to $224,418 other funds total, of which $47,382 of other funds is one-time, and that is for one full-time equivalent position for a new unclaimed property attorney. And I'm going to take a brief moment to describe that. Folks, because of our work in this body having to do with the cryptocurrency and blockchain, there was a company that folded up, for lack of a better word, in another part of the country. And they came to us, our treasurer's office, to deal with returning funds in the lost property, which is handled by this particular executive, and it was a significant amount. And the good thing for the state right now is that those funds are in our investment accounts. They're being kept track of so that as the office attempts to find the actual owners of those funds, they will be able to pull those funds and give them to the rightful owner. But in the meantime, we are gaining interest off of that, and it is a significant amount of money. But also, this is a new area where customers and owners are not easily found. It's based on anonymity. And so it's expected it'll take a long, long time, if ever we're able to find all the people who own those funds. And so this additional position is to deal with those search efforts. They have to get translation software to translate into other languages, because these people are, frankly, all over the world. So moving on. JAC adopted the state treasurer's request for $14,000 other funds for postage. Again, dealing with these tracking down of owners of those funds. JAC adopted the state treasurer's request for $15,000 for maintenance agreements related to data integrity. JAC adopted the state treasurer's request for $47,200 in other funds for chatbot language translation services and a software upgrade for fraud prevention. JAC adopted the state treasurer's request, including a technical correction to reduce the one-time benefits by $25,188 to $1.113,744 million in other funds, of which $307,464 is one-time, and that is for 3 full-time equivalent positions for 2 new senior investment officers and 1 new investment officer. So these positions, folks, have to do with our investment team. We talked about that quite a bit yesterday. As we grow our saved funds, we are asking these investors to do more and more. For instance, the votes on the boards of directors of these companies that we might own a great deal of stock in, rather than giving our proxy to the middleman. A lot of times we're getting involved with that, and so it's taking more and more management of our team, more and more time to really get involved with ensuring that we have the greatest return on investment. JAC adopted the state treasurer's request for $26,951 of other funds, of which $5,897 is one-time to reclassify 1 senior accounting analyst to a principal accountant. Okay, on this accounting side, our CIO, you may know him, has done a phenomenal job over the last several years leading our investment team. By the way, he supports that effort that we did yesterday in getting those funds into accounts where he can really work with those funds and get better returns. But he is getting ready to retire mid-year this year. He's not retiring entirely. He's still going to be working on certain parts of our funds that he does, but he's doing 2 jobs right now. And he's going to retire from the main leadership of our team. And so we're looking for a new employee. He will have the next several months to train that person to lead our investment team, and then he will stay on board with that one portion of investment that he manages currently. JAC adopted state treasurer's request for $26,951 of other funds, of which $5,897 is one-time to reclassify a senior accounting analyst to a principal accountant. That's part of those changes I just discussed. JAC adopted the state treasurer's request, including a technical correction to reduce the one-time benefits by $8,396 to $179,666, of which $32,342 is one-time and 1 full-time equivalent position for a new senior accounting analyst. And with that, I'll stand for questions for Section 4.
Representative Lean.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Today you speak of 1 full-time employee to help allocate all of these funds that we took on as a state to be able to part them out. Is this a temporary position, a permanent position, and what is the anticipated rate of return on this employee? Do we anticipate that this position will be paid for pretty quickly, or do we think that we'll lose some money for a while and then eventually it will pay for itself?
Chairman Bear?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Great question. As I recall, this is for an attorney that has to deal with the dispatching of these funds and making sure that we're dealing with it properly. It is not a temporary position. We anticipate these funds being in our accounts for the foreseeable future. And it is a significant amount of money. In fact, the return on our investing these funds while we're looking for the people that they belong to is going to be significant. The reason you see SR in the note is because these positions are all paid for out of earnings from that agency. So no, it's not a part-time because we don't foresee this issue going away anytime soon.
Representative Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So on note 2 for this section, you're talking about a full-time equivalent position for a new unclaimed property attorney, and you had mentioned that there is a substantial amount of property that's being held. Is that in the form of dollars and cents, or is it in some sort of digital asset?
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Great question. It is in dollars and cents. And that is because that was how it was handed over to us from the blockchain company. And it was a liquidation of the actual electronic funds, if you will, that they had in their system as that went out of business.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If you have more questions about that, it is on page, sorry, we've got so many notes, I can't see the page number. 21 and 22 of the budget request book, of which there's a copy in this chair up here. But I kind of avoided telling you what the size of that money was. It was $260 million, just so you know. And some of these owners have less than $20. So that's why there's a lot of postage being added. That's why there's an attorney being added to determine, what is the best way to get this money back, if at all possible. Okay. And Madam Chairman, with that, unless there are further questions, that concludes the explanation of Section 4, Department of the Treasurer.
Absent any objections, Section 4 is now closed. Chairman Bear. Representative Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. For an explanation of Section 6 for administration and information can be found on page 3 of your summary or page 14 of your House Bill 1. This agency is the one that takes care of all of our buildings and grounds and maintenance and all that fun stuff. And just to touch base on some of the previous questions, if you look at the first note here, JAC adopted the governor's recommendation to continue one at-will employee contract. We refer to those as an AWEC. So that is a difference between an FTE is full-time employee that works for the state versus a contract employee that is often seasonal or part-time, and they're not eligible for federal funds. This position that we approved was for Saturday information desk attendant at the Wyoming State Capitol. And next, the JAC amended footnote number 2 in your budget to transfer up to $313,000 of general fund dollars, or as much as is remaining in that account, to the Capitol Square preservation to ensure that the Capitol building is open to the public on Saturdays and extended weekend hours during the summer and for special events. The JAC denied the governor's recommendation of $271,600 general funds, of which $70,526 general funds was a one-time and the equivalent of 3 full-time employees positions for things like custodial, groundskeeping, and snow and ice removal services for new properties that the state acquired. The state, the two cities specifically that were getting new state buildings were in Riverton and Cheyenne. The state's trying to consolidate different buildings and in that one town, and then we're also looking further at our future development of the capital city. The JAC decreased the governor's recommendation of $815,000 of general funds, of which $162,000 general funds was also one time, for a total of $579,293 general funds, and denied 2 full-time equivalent FTE positions for new trade specialists, and they were specifically a plumber and electrician, and for the maintenance of the operations of the new property that was acquired. And we did leave in place the availability for them to contract out, but we did not want to increase the state's benefits, and so we denied the FTE, but they can still get the work done. And lastly, the JAC adopted the governor's recommendation of $296,120 general funds, of which $45,596 general funds was a one-time estimated utilities cost for those new properties that we acquired. So, any questions?
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So number 3, the 3 full-time equivalent positions for custodial and groundskeeping. I know you mentioned something about the buildings, but I'm wondering, are the buildings going away? I think you mentioned consolidation. I just am trying to understand why we're cutting those jobs and what we don't need. And then could you just clarify, none of those folks work at the Capitol, they're all in the land of the river and tons, and just clarify exactly where those 3 FTEs are.
Representative Smith.
Okay, thank you for the question. Specifically, there are employees that can do a lot of the work that is already on the state's payroll. So for instance, some of the buildings were within walking distance of here. So we figured if there needed to be snow and ice removal, the people who take care of the Capitol complex could just mow a little yard and things like that. As far as in the other town, closer to the center of the state, they we're consolidating buildings to bring all of the state leases into one that is owned by the state. So we did leave it available for them to hire contractual employees. So no one's losing their job. We just were not increasing the job. So, thank you. Madam Chairman, unless there are further questions, that concludes, just kidding.
Representative Larson.
Thank you. Perhaps still on that note 3, just a little more clarification. So in the facility, in the new acquisition we have here in the capital city, which is the building down there where the department that takes care of our environmental issues, that's an addition of 60,000 square feet where the janitorial services were previously taken care of by the owner of the building. And you're saying that we can take on that additional 60,000 square feet with existing janitorial services that are in the buildings, if you just correct that. And then the other requests were more for your trades, your plumber and your electrician. And you note that you provide for the acquisition up in Riverton to have contractual services, which is great, but we've increased our total square footage by 31% to where I think we're up over 15,000 square feet since 2000 and 2010, but we haven't kept up with those trades. And we've been having this discussion now for a number of bienniums, and the burden on those existing tradesmen, electricians and plumbers, you think that the additional 60,000 square feet and that they can adequately take care of those services is my question, please.
Representative Smith.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. As far as the capital city property acquisitions, they were just small, tiny homes. So that is all my understanding for that. Is that correct? Yeah. So, so there's a couple tiny homes near the Capitol complex that the state acquired. So they potentially may turn them into excess office spaces in the future. But that's part of the long-term plan.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was underneath the understanding this was a long-term lease that we had with the Department of Environmental Quality that we, and my understanding from this is the good prior Vice Chairman of Appropriations was alluding to this. It's down on 17th Street. We acquired that property, which is now state-owned property, and it's on, you know, kind of a downtown area. And so I think his question is similar to mine. I do know of some of the other smaller houses around the area as well that have been acquired, but that one seemed to be the larger concern for me because I know that the custodial services were taken care of by the owner of that building prior to us buying it. Also, when you start having the downtown area with making sure that the sidewalks are shoveled and things like that, I know our custodial services around here are not going to be driving down a tractor, you know, half a mile away to just go sweep just one little area. So a little more clarification on that. I thought for sure we had acquired that in this past year, but maybe that was last year. If we can just get some clarification, I'd appreciate it.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you for the question. So yeah, we have acquired new properties. We've taken testimony from A&I, and we believe that we need to use the resources that we have a little more efficiently. We have 12 months till we go into a budget. We consider this an emergency budget, and I'll remind you that that's exactly what the governor said on page 2 of his request, is that these are for emergency issues. And as the good prior appropriator said, you know, we've left some of these things for some time unfilled. And so if the prior appropriators felt that way, and we're coming in, I'll admit, Johnny come lately, we're going to continue their thinking for 12 more months, and then we're going to see if we need to fill these positions at that time.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you're looking for the entire narrative, you can go to the supplemental budget book under section 6, and it's on page 26, and that will answer all your questions. Unless there are further questions, that concludes the explanation of 6 for A&I.
Thank you, Representative Smith. Absent any objections, section 6 is closed. Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Body, we're going to open at this time section 8. With those of you from a military background, that gets you excited. Section 8 is the Office of the Public Defender, and this is a really straightforward one, but it actually occurs at least 7 more times with this little note. And essentially what happened is back in the original budget bill a year ago, the existing JAC at that time put a budget note in there, section 307. And the governor vetoed that And upon looking at it and reconsidering it, now that we've had a chance to get back, we put it back in. So what is it? If you look at page 79 of your bill, and while you do that, you'll also want to look at page 28 in your data book, and it discusses expenditure series. There's a 100 series, which is personnel, and it goes on down to 900 series, which are contractual expenditures. And the general rule is that you can't move funds up into the 100. They've got to stay where they're at. You can't take 900 funds, which is monies for contractual service, and give it to your own employees. It's structured that way. There are, however, I believe 8 different agencies where we chose not to give them that restriction. One of them, for example, is YDOT, and you'll see that as we go through there. So I just wanted to say that first item there on page 3 of your SR, page 16 of the budget, says JAC amended footnote number 1 to exempt the appropriation from section 347. So what this effectively does, it gives 8 agencies a little bit more latitude in using their funds and being able to move them up and down the system. So that's a pretty straightforward thing. And while we're here, I would ask you to just look over there on the right column, and you see the $26,035,169. Next to that, you see $4,564,582, and that's special revenue. That's dedicated other funds, as you'll also hear it, because it's in that other funds column. Essentially, what this is a matching. So the county comes up out of their income with the $4.5 million, and the state matches 85% of the total. So that kind of gives you an idea how to read those columns. And I chose that one because it was very sparse and fairly simple. So with that, if there are any questions.
Chairman Washington.
Thank you, Chairman. So there's been several articles in my local news about staffing issues within this agency of government and the workload, caseload. And I'm just wondering, did the agency request additional personnel or additional funding to deal with their workload issues?
Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you look at, again, at page 3 of your SR, that first column there says the governors and courts and elected officials total recommended changes, and you will see zeros. So we did not receive a request from that agency for any more help. Any other questions? With that, we'll close this agency and keep moving.
Absent any objections, section 8 is closed. Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, we're going to be looking at Section 10, Department of Agriculture. And this section here did not have an appropriation request, but as we went back and looked at veto overrides from last year, this was one area that we opened up. And what this is the money was left, but the footnote or the conversation was taken out, and that is, if you look at it would be page 4 of your status report or page 17 of your House Bill 1, you're going to see that line 1, JAC recommended footnote number 4 to specify that $1 million of special revenues may come from the Game and Fish Fund for special projects related to predator control. That was vetoed out, and we reinserted language. The money was still there, so there's no actual appropriation, just the reinserting of the language if this is something that is needed, and we wanted to have the ability to move forward with it.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none, please continue.
Madam Chairman, if there are no other questions, I would request that we close Section 10, Department of Agriculture.
Absent any objection, Section 10 is closed.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The next section for our consideration is Section 11, Department of Revenue. There were two requests in this, a request for $10,575,000 and a request, well, it would be a request for $10,500,000 and then a request for $75,000. So and actually I don't know exactly the year, but a number of years ago they had the property tax refund program, and last year in 2023, I guess 2 years ago in 2023, we expanded this program. There was a fiscal note of expecting around $2 million a year, and more people took advantage of that program than was originally anticipated or expected. And so if you look down on line 1, you're going to see JAC adopted the governor's rec of $75,000. This is a one-time contract fee or service fee for the property tax refund program. And then the second line, the JAC adopted the governor's rec of $10.5 million of general funds. This is a one-time appropriation, and this is to fulfill the property tax refund program. We're excited that people are using this, but at the same time, Department of Revenue did not have the funds available to be able to fully run this program as they saw necessary. And so this is to backfill that for a single year of the property tax refund program.
Any questions on Section 11? Okay, Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to point out, folks, this was concern number 2 of the executive, tax relief. This was his solution for tax relief, and we are meeting his request for this $10.5 million to continue the program that you have to apply for to get tax relief based on your income level within your county. And so that's what this was. We did respond to the governor's request. Of course, this body has also responded to the public by passing House Bill 169 to provide another option of tax relief that does not require anybody to apply for.
Representative Larson.
Thank you. I just asked for a little clarification from the good chairman who said that this was the governor's solution for tax relief. I think that this is in response to legislative action last year that increased that program, and he's just trying to make sure that it's funded as we outlined it. Am I mistaken on that?
Chairman Bear.
Madam Chairman, yeah, that's a correct statement. This is a program that we propped up, expanded. It's been in place for many years, but obviously with the kind of tax relief that people are seeking, this program has really taken off. The good representative from the northeast corner of the state that represents more of the county than the city in the northeast corner, she and I worked on an amendment for this program to make it more expansive and more helpful. I think we shocked this body when somebody from the far right and far left really worked together to do something. But we do that in this body. And so that's the program that this is. And yes, it is running out of funds because it is so popular right now. And that was, I believe, what the governor was signifying when he said he was looking for tax relief for the people, because that is his request in this budget.
Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, I hope the chairman was talking about the geography of the state. But I think the question I have is, so we have an interim revenue bill that was talking about tightening the means for the refund program. Is this too much with that bill passing, or is it just about how much refund does that bill not need as much of, and do we need to react to that in the budget?
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Great question. This is coming from the department based on their experience of fulfilling these loans. Last year, when we got into the budget session, the governor requested $20 million after the first year of this. We did not fund it significantly. And so in the budget, we actually added a lot more funds. But again, it's continuing to be a very popular program. More and more people are taking advantage of it. This is an estimate by that department from their experience. And I would say, working with them in the good committee that works on this issue and with this department, they do very careful analysis. And I think they've made a great estimate of what they anticipate getting them through the next 12 months.
Madam Chairman, unless there are any further questions, that will conclude, well, we got one.
Representative Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a question on this program that was established, because I don't remember if there was a sunset or an end date, or if this was a perpetual program, or if it was based on the amount of funds that were available. So once we've maxed that number, I don't remember how that was set up. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Did you?
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Great question. No, there's not a end date or a sunset on that particular program, but you're right. It is based on our funding it. And the executive has asked for, and we have responded by funding that for the near future.
Madam Chairwoman, and just also to add into that, with the 2003 bill, we opened those sideboards a little bit more. So that's where we are seeing this increase in funding requirement for that. So 2023, did I say 2003? 2023. So Madam Chairman, unless there are any further questions, that will conclude the explanation of Section 11, Department of Revenue.
Absent any objections, Section 11 is closed. Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're on page 5 of your SR. At the top of that page, you'll see Section 15, Attorney General. Because the JAC denied those, they do not appear in the bill. And so if you have questions or comments on that, please hold them till Monday when we do the Section 300 and we're completed there. So moving on then to Section 20, Department of Environmental Control. This is a really tough one. I spent quite a bit of time studying this. The JAC accepted the governor's request of $79,696 special funds, of which $15,940 is one-time for salary adjustments for uranium recovery program. Folks, we got some people with some special skills that we need, and in order to entice them to come to work for the state, we needed to offer a little bit better price. Any questions? Excellent. Madam Chair, with no further objection, I would ask to move on from Section 20.
Absent any objections, Section 20 is closed. Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So our next section, you'll find on page 6 of your bill status report, which is page 22 of House Bill 1, and it is Section 24, State Parks and Cultural Resources. This bill here has 5 items that we're going to look at, but only one actually has to do with funding. The rest of them have to do with veto overrides and conversation with that. So on line 1, JAC recommended footnote 2 to include the appropriation for the We the People program in the agency's standard budget for the immediate succeeding fiscal biennium. The We the People program has been around for 20 years. The language of it was removed with a line item veto, and we believe this is a program that's adequate and successful, has had a track record, and believe it should be there still. So we did a line item veto to place that back in, that language back in. Line 2, JAC recommended footnote 3 to include the appropriation for matching funds for humanitarian initiative grants in the agency's standard budget for the immediate succeeding fiscal biennium. So this is a pass-through funding model. So state parks, the money goes through state parks to the Wyoming Humanitarian account, and this is something that we feel has purpose and needs to continue. So it was another line item veto that we overrode. And then moving on to number 3, JAC recommended footnote number 4 to not include the appropriation to the Wyoming Centennial Farm and Ranch Program in the agency's standard budget for the immediate succeeding fiscal biennium. And this is just this is the same conversation that we've had of just, is this something that needed to continue? And as we looked through this, we felt that was not the case. And so we exempted that appropriation. Now moving on to 5, this is where we actually get into the money as we talk about the state's parks and natural resources, cultural resources. Actually, sorry, I missed line 4. Line 4 is number 2 of 8 of those 307 section, 347 section positions. You're going to hear, we heard about one in the identical to the public defender office conversation. You're going to hear about 8 of them total today. This is just that renumbering and reallocating of that position. And then going into 5, JAC reduced $3,338,756 general fund for the High Plains Research Station, Arboretum here in Cheyenne. So as we looked into this, this is currently being held by the city of Cheyenne. They did a study and realized that they would be in the ballpark of $20 million to restore this facility. And we felt that weighing out the finances next to the gains, we felt that that was not there was not an ROI on that. And it's something that is not currently in state parks or cultural resources hands. And as we've talked with them, this is something that they have not taken over, and they won't directly say one way or the other, but they were not opposed as we cut this. And so this is a conversation that that has been going on for the last couple of years. You've gotten information on it, but we feel at this point there's better places to put $20 million when it comes to state parks and cultural resources. And with that, I'd ask for any questions.
Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, thank you. So for the Arboretum, is the amount that's still left in the appropriation just the amount that's been spent in the last year?
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. So they did a study on this, and that was the money they used for the study to realize they needed to make. It was a $20 million ask. And so that's what you would have seen the rest of that. The $3,338,756 is what was left, and that's what we stripped out.
Representative Worf.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I had a question. I'm unfamiliar with We the People program is. Can you tell us a little bit about what that program is, please? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. We're going to turn to our residential cultural expert on these programs.
Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, I am a trained public historian, so I'm very excited to talk about this initiative. It's a civics competition that takes place in our schools. Lately, there has been one reigning champion from up in Polo Country. Cheers in the back there. And so those students come to the Capitol and they get to interact in this beautiful building and get to flex their muscles on our federal and state constitution through debate with one another. And we're producing really amazing civically engaged students from this program. Thank you.
Representative Nicholas.
Thank you. Just a little clarification on the Arboretum. So the state parks did an evaluation of the facility. For those of you who don't know, this is a property that's on the other side of the good Air Force Base here in town, where in the early 1900s, they established an arboretum for trees to see what, and using federal dollars, it was run by the federal government to develop high plains trees and all things like that for around Wyoming and other states around us. They still have over like 600 trees that were planted back then. But since about the 1970s, it's gone into disrepair. But it is truly a National Historic Site on its own. Eventually then, in the 2000s, the federal government transferred ownership of the property to the city of Cheyenne. City of Cheyenne does not have the funds or the capital to maintain or upgrade the Arboretum, and so they have approached the state and said, how do we save this wonderful property? And so there's currently a bill that is in the backwaters of our Good Appropriations Committee that we brought in order to turn this into a state park that hasn't come up yet. But what we did is we took the report from the good folks at the state parks. The $20 million that they're talking about, that's the full cost if they went in and basically reconstituted the whole thing. We always knew that size of funds was just not practical at this point in time. So we put in the $3.5 million just to go in and to shore up and protect the buildings with the hopes that we can turn it into a state park and also make it commercially viable so that the park itself would start growing the trees and provide those trees to the communities around the state. You know, there's no place in Wyoming now to buy homegrown Wyoming trees for our highways, for our cities and towns and counties, and commercially. And this is a unique place that we're hoping to do that. So we were trying to put together a public-private partnership to put that together. And that's still a dream of some of us down here in Laramie County. And so the city basically has asked us to intervene, and they've agreed to put in about roughly $150,000 to $200,000 a year to help work with us to get this in and get it in working order. And that's $3.5 million that we appropriated was basically to kind of preserve the assets because it is basically a National Historic Site, and particularly for Wyoming. And so you'll see if that bill comes out of committee, we'll have the chance to debate that further. But there's never any intention to spend $20 million because obviously we're not in a position to do that. It's what we wanted to do is just preserve it and then allow the state parks to over time and with community support, see if we can't turn it into something that will preserve it forever for Wyoming.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you for that history on the Arboretum. It is, I don't think anyone's disagreeing, it is a beautiful place. The question is, long-term, we will put this type of money into it. And is that the question we want to do? And then to respectfully push back, there are a number of tree farms in the state of Wyoming. They're just not publicly owned, they're privately owned. Madam Chairwoman, with that, if there are no further questions, I would ask that we could close Section 24, State Parks and Cultural Resources.
Absent any objection, Section 24 is closed. Representative Pendergraph.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Page 6 of your, we're not supposed to use the word cheat sheet, but I can't think of the SR name right now. Page 25 of your budget, Agency 27, State Construction Department. And if you've been paying attention, you probably think, I thought we slayed that beast. On Monday, we brought a separate bill, House Bill 259, and most of this was dealt with in that bill. However, the last item you see at the bottom of the page, we left in the budget as it does reflect continuing, ongoing, normal expense, which is what the budget is for. That item says JAC adopted the governor's rec of $2,887,000 and change out of S5. Now that S5, if you look on page 31 of your data book, you'll see is the school foundation program account. I think it shows up on page 32. I would really encourage you guys to read through that pages 31, 32, 33. Get familiar with these various accounts. Basically what they represent, if you think about your home budget, is a checkbook and a savings account and some CDs. And then eventually they're like the permanent mineral trust fund is just that, it's a trust fund. And it helps you understand a little bit about what we're doing. So take a little bit of time, try to understand how those relate, and if you have questions, reach out to any of us. At this point, are there any questions on Section 27, State Construction Department? Seeing none, okay, seeing no questions and barring no exceptions, I would ask that we move on from Section 27, the State Construction Department.
Absent any objection, Section 27 is closed. Representative Angelos.
Madam Chairman, for the explanation of Section 39, Wildlife and Cultural Resource Trust, you can turn to page 26 in your bill or page 7 on your status report. And number 1, JAC decreased the governor's recommendation of $130 million. That's $101,279,207 of gluten-free. General funds, you could tell my family's gluten-free. General funds, and $28,720,793 of permanent mineral trust fund reserve account, decreased that one-time appropriation by $30 million. So $1,279,207 general funds. I'm going to keep saying that. And $28,720,793 of the permanent mineral trust fund reserve account to $100 million out of the LISRA for natural disaster mitigation loans, and move this appropriation to 346, and you will see that on the very back page of your status report. And we'll go into a little bit more on that. JAC adopted the governor's recommendation of $11 million of general funds one time for invasive plants, grasses, mitigation, and amended the footnote number 1. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Representative Ian.
Madam Chairman, so maybe just a little explanation on the conversation around the, apologies. The footnote 1 on the status report where we talk about mitigation loans. I guess that's going to be moved to a section 346, but since it was part of the governor's rec, should we discuss it now or wait until that section?
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think it's a good discussion to have right now. We can kind of chew on it over lunch. So the discussion in the committee, and it was brought up by our colleagues from across the way, they're part of the JAC, that we should, rather than grant money in this fire mitigation, which is mostly supposed to be for weed control, and the reason that the executive felt like weed control is a state responsibility is because we own the wildlife, and these private ranchers are providing habitat for our wildlife, and we want to protect that habitat by ensuring that invasive weeds don't take over. And so the conversation was wrapped around, well, should that be granted or should it be loaned? And so the end result was that the JAC came up with loaning the money, and you'll see this on that very first sheet that I gave you, the 30,000 foot one, it's in green, rather than do a grant of $130,000 to landowners to fix their land, which would come with strings attached. We would have to dictate to ensure that there's no fraud, waste, or abuse, exactly how that money is spent. We chose to do it in a loan, low interest, 2% interest, 20-year term. And we even, to make it a little easier for those people who may find need for this loan to go ahead and go through the process, we did not require, which we usually do with loans, for the state to be in the first position. So that allows, if they've already got a loan on whatever the asset is that's going to be used for collateral, and we did allow them to use, and we've done this in the past, their product from their agricultural work as collateral if they chose. So the reduction from 130 million of the governor's request down to 100 million just had to do with our confidence in the executive's, I'll just call it spitballing, because nobody knows what the real cost is going to be for some of this mitigation. So there's two pieces. One, we reduced it from 130 down to 100, and then we converted it from being a grant to a loan program. And much discussion was made about that, and happy to answer any questions about that.
Representative Yen.
Madam Chairman, so I guess additional question and for some context that I'm curious about. Did we hear from any ranchers or representative ranchers of whether they were interested in the loans?
Representative Byron.
Just a good question for the good appropriations chair. In addition to that, does the 2% interest cover the cost associated with administering this loan program? Does that 2% come back into account somewhere? Just wonder if you'd clear that up.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and great questions. So I'll deal with the last one first. The answer is within the 2%, if you look at the footnote, 1% of that loan is for administration. That means that the state would be capable of making 1% interest on these notes over a 20-year period. And the question prior to that was, did we hear from those parties that were involved? And I'll let the good representative who has much of her district involved in this issue answer the question.
Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And yes, I did hear from our ranchers on this. Specifically in my area, they were fond of the loan program. And one of the reasons being, when you take grants, there is some stipulations on what type of fencing you can put in. And some of our ranchers are very particular about their fence. So they would rather have a loan and then be able to do that and use those funds as they choose. I only had one person complain, and when I explained the situation, they were someone who was affected in Johnson County. And once I explained, they were in agreement as well. But you can find the whole explanation of this on page 76 of your bill. It kind of goes into more detail, and that might help. But we will get into that too. If you have more questions, bring them. We'll get into that on the very back page.
Representative Connolly.
Thank you. Maybe you just answered my question. I wanted to know if there was any discussion from what I'm hearing with our conservation districts and our weed and pest districts.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think the good bringer of this section wants to answer that. I want to too, but go ahead.
Representative Angelos.
Madam Chair, yes, that has been in discussion on our weed and pest districts and how they would address a loan that's not possible. So I'm sure there will be some amendments on this section to address our weed and pest. Thank you.
Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding switching from grants to loans, I've gotten some concern from my county of the who's in charge of the weed and pest control district, and they're worried about how this will affect their funding and be able to address areas being overtaken by cheatgrass.
Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative, that is exactly what will probably be addressed. We have realized that, and I am assuming there will be a amendment brought to address our weed and pest, maybe do a portion in grant and for those weed and pest districts specifically, and then a portion in loan for our people affected. I also want to address that this was an actual natural disaster fund. So if there are other funds, like we asked earlier about those affected by the La Prelle Dam or any other natural disaster, that's what we made this fund for. So it's a little bit revolutionary, but we wanted it to be accessible to anyone that has a natural disaster in the state of Wyoming to access. We're one of 5 states that do not have a natural disaster fund, so that addresses the issue.
Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just thank you to members of Committee Number 2 on really, okay, so this is in budget bill, so it's going to last 1 year. I mean, is there a plan? Is this I didn't see any reference to like legislative designated investments or public purpose investments. And so I'm wondering what the long-term plan, we're going to give a loan out to a program that goes away with this budget language in 1 year. And it makes a lot of stipulations about what's going to happen, but it's going to go away. So what's kind of the long-term plan, or was that discussed in committee? And then I have another question really about the 2%. Usually with, public purpose investments, we can lower that some, but we've been trying to maintain so we don't have that opportunity loss on these loans. So anyway, just some more talk about the long-term plan here and the 2%. Thank you.
Representative Angelos.
Madam Chair, great question. I think that's where we're at right now, Representative, is how many people are going to need to access this, especially after already, I've talked to a lot of them that have applied for federal funding for grants to help replace those fencing and any kind of components that were damaged in the fire. So it is going to be something that it's kind of a fluid moment right now of how many people are going to access it. Is it going to need to continue? We'd like to see it continue, and we'll address that in budget.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I just want to again address the invasive species because I've had a few conversations with ranchers as we talked about this loan versus grant. And really that is the issue that the executive felt that should be addressed by the state. And, we're trying to accommodate that via this loan where he would like to do it as a grant. But one of the things that we all want to be aware of is that we have an ongoing invasive species program, which is well-funded, and we intend to fund it more as we get into the next budget. But what I learned when talking to the invested parties is that if you're a rancher and you're spending, some of these people are spending like $400,000 or more on chemical to spray these invasive weeds. And the state benefits from that. Our wildlife get the benefit of our wildlife being able to use those natural resources without the invasive species, which affects what they can eat. So what I learned is that unlike all the other ag products that we exempt from sales tax, chemicals are not exempt. And so when you're buying $450,000 worth of chemicals to spray invasive species that frankly, they're helping the state, and then the state is billing you also for sales tax on top of that. That's probably an area of opportunity, and I know that we have some bills that deal with sales tax in the subject coming over from the other body, and I would encourage somebody in this body to be thinking very seriously about maybe making a carve-out for those ranchers who are dealing with this issue, that they might not get billed by the state at the same time we're trying to help them. And so just a thought there.
Representative Angelos.
Madam Chair, if there aren't any other questions, we'll go ahead and close out this section.
Absent any objections, section 39 is now closed. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Madam Chairwoman, I move that the House stand in recess until 2:15 this afternoon.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Speaker, quick privilege of the floor.
Representative Williams, privilege.
Members, I would like to introduce to you Ray and Valerie Sharp of Goshen County. Came down to watch us work for them today, and welcome to the House.
Representative Yin,
Madam Chairman, privilege.
please go ahead.
So members, downstairs in the Capitol Extension, we have the Civil Air Patrol's Wyoming wing. So Civil Air Patrol is an auxiliary part of the Air Force. They're here for you to learn about the Civil Air Patrol, how it makes an impact in Wyoming. They do things like search and rescue, but they also do things like train the next generation of leaders through their cadet program. We have several members of their leadership, several lieutenant colonels, majors, and several cadets downstairs that would love to meet you guys over lunch.
Thank you, Representative Yin. Representative Singh,
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Privilege of the floor.
please go ahead.
Members, just to let you know, there will be a get well soon card for Representative Riggins that is floating around. If you can go ahead and sign that, we would very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional privileges? No? Okay. Oh, committee announcements. Representative Byron, Chairman Byron.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, Cultural Resources, is going to have a special meeting Monday morning because my members love waking up early. 8 a.m., Capitol Extension Room 6 and online. House Bill 85, local approval for simulcasting. House Bill 162, interactive gaming, both continued from our previous meeting. And House Bill 136, volunteer first responder health insurance revisions.
Thank you. Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your committee number 2, House Appropriations, will meet upstairs in E301. We'll be discussing House Bill 21, House Bill 316, House Bill 293, and House Bill 305, and we will commence in 10 minutes from now.
Thank you. That concludes committee assignments. We'll stand in recess until 2:15. Oh, Chairman Knapp.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Your Corporations Committee number 7 will meet in 10 minutes in E005 to hear House Bill number 215, House Bill number 170, and House Bill number 262.
We will stand in recess until 2:15 p.m.